Thank you very much, Tony. It's a great joy to be here, to be at this gathering of the provincial chapter of St. John the Baptist province, gathering here in St. Mildred, Indiana. So thank you very much.
Thanks. We're delighted that you're here. We wanted to help the friars understand a little bit about what your day-to-day life is like. I know that they know that their knowledge, except for gatherings like this, is that they get letters from you, fairly long letters, by the way, and they know that you travel, and they know that you visit people, and they know that you probably read all the time. But for example, this week, maybe you could start at Sunday and then just sort of walk me through the week and where you're going and when.
Okay, on Sunday I was actually preparing for a meeting that is taking place right now in just outside of Rome, a place called Sassone. There's a meeting, the first international Congress for the O.F.M. Franciscans in our history, focusing on missionary evangelization. 130 participants, and so I was able to go and prepare and then spend Monday with them, and then begin to prepare for the trip for Tuesday, flying from Rome to the United States through New York, Indianapolis, and this morning here. So that was Tuesday. Wednesday is the great opportunity to be here with the brothers, to be able to experience. Obviously, one of the things I have to do or get to do is talk a lot, but I also try to create a space to listen when it's possible first, when I go someplace, to listen first, and then after having listened and already have studied something about the brothers I'll meet with, then be able to talk with them about some of the concerns they have and also about some of the great opportunities that are before them. I will leave tomorrow morning early. I'll fly through New York back to Rome so that I can prepare to go and meet with Pope Francis to welcome him to our church in Bethlehem when he comes. I'll accompany part of his delegation on several other visits to an ecumenical prayer service. And then the following day, I will welcome him to our shrine church in Jerusalem, where he will, together with the Patriarch, the Orthodox Patriarch Bartholomew, will be having meetings, and he'll also be meeting with the Patriarch, the Latin Patriarch. So that's kind of this week. And the following week, let's see, next week I'll get back just in time to prepare to come back to the United States to participate in three other chapters of the friars here in the United States. And then I'll spend June in East Africa, visiting the friars and having a chance to listen to what's going on there and to give them encouragement, to encourage them to continue to stay the course and to continue to give witness to the gospel with great joy.
So out of every month, you're on an airplane maybe 2 weeks of that.
Out of every 2 months, we have a meeting of the government of the order for 2 weeks in Rome. There we get a chance to talk about some of the good things that are happening and also some challenges, difficulties for which the friars have written to ask us for some advice. So I will meet with the vicar of the order, Julio Bonader from Argentina, and with 8 counselors for the different regions of the world, and we talk together about these issues. So when I'm not there during those 2 weeks, a fair amount of the other time, so probably 5 weeks out of 8 weeks, I'm traveling, visiting the friars.
And what's the longest stretch of time you have been able to be home in one place?
Well, I was home for just about a month. Back, when was this? Back in the late fall, because I picked up a parasite in one of the countries I was visiting. And so we had the 2-week meeting, and then the doctor ordered me to rest a bit, so I stayed home a little longer. But in the middle of that, I had to run off to Geneva just for a day to be able to give testimony to the Human Rights Council. But by and large, that's probably the longest stint that I've had to be able to stay present in the Curia.
And what is your routine like when you're home? For example, what would a typical day be?
Typical day would be morning prayer and Mass at 7, followed by a bit of a breakfast, and then by 8:30, I'm in the office to begin work. I try to use the early part of the morning to do reading of emails, reading of letters and things, looking at some issues. And then the second half of the morning, sometimes meeting with friars, provincials, other people who want to talk about, who come to Rome. And then in the afternoons, sometimes meeting with commissions, and then or else working on special projects, working on reading and preparing for talks that I might have to give, places I might have to visit. I try to meet before going to a province or a region. I'd meet with our advisor for that region, a definitor. We meet with people, the formation and studies, the secretary. I meet with the secretary for mission evangelization. I meet with the director of the Office of Justice and Peace. We meet together to talk, to get a comprehensive view of what are some of the challenges, what are some of the opportunities in a particular country. So we actually do these meetings as a preparation before I would go.
So most of the information that you get about what's going on in the order, I mean, does that come from the internet, or does it come from advisory groups, or do you just voraciously read newspapers, or how do you?
There are three sources of information, I could probably say. The first source comes from the friars themselves, through the provincial minister or the custos or the president of a foundation, in the case where we have several foundations, Myanmar, we have a foundation in India, we have a foundation in Brazil. So the friars themselves would be writing, or the definitor or the counselor would be providing information from his visits and his contacts. So that would be the first source. The second source could come from the Vatican, from the Secretary of State, or from the Office for Evangelization, or it comes from apostolic nuncios. We have discussions with them to find out what's going on. That's to get the larger context, what's happening in the country in terms of religion, politics, economics, culture, and if there are any special ways that the friars can be of help to the local church and to the people. And the third source then would be talking newspapers, other articles, or even I tend to talk with people in State Department. I talk with people working in the State Departments of other governments to get some background. I talk to ambassadors who are in Rome to get further background, particularly if we're going into an area where there are many, many political issues, just to have the background. I don't speak about the politics when I'm there, but it's helpful to know what the friars are living, what the church is living, because that gives me a better platform on which to stand, and then we can help formulate, rather than making silly, stupid comments and suggestions that aren't going to work because we don't understand the context. I still sometimes make silly ideas, but that's okay. That comes with the terrain.
You must have an excellent memory. I've just been impressed with, for example, the individual names that you know, the ministries you mentioned, the things that people are doing. I mean, is that, or do you just have to work really hard at remembering things?
It's a funny thing. I can remember almost to a date someone I've met. I can remember where it's happened, and I can remember what we've talked about. What I sometimes can't remember is the name, which I feel embarrassed about. I'd love to be able to remember the names of all the brothers and other people, but someone who's also a Franciscan, he's a affiliate of the Order of Holy Name Province, but of the order, is Cardinal Theodore McCarrick. And Cardinal McCarrick's reputation was that he could remember the names of the parishioners he would meet when he would go out to visit in Washington, D.C. He would remember the names of their children, the names of their parents, and the names of their cousins. I don't have that type of memory, but I think it's important it's just something that maybe it's in my mind, I don't know, but I'm able to try to peg someone with an event, because the event then becomes an opportunity to be able to return to find out what's happened in that person's life since that time, particularly if it's really a significant event in their life, in the life of their people, the life of the order. So,
do you read for pleasure, or do you have time to read for pleasure? And if you do, what do you like to read?
I don't get to read too much really for pleasure. I read Franciscan sources a lot. I've had to kind of catch up because it was not my expertise. I tend still to read things like New York Times, Washington Post, Le Monde out of France. I listen a little bit to BBC. I listen to Al Jazeera to get different perspectives on problems rather than just one. And then I read a lot of, I read small articles, I read foreign policy journals, I read theological journals, just to try to to keep up. What I enjoy reading, I really like to read. I love the Millennial series. Steg Larsson, who did 3 series, and there's one more book I think in his computer or 2. We're hoping unfortunately he died at a young age, but hopefully there'll be 1 or 2 more books coming out. Just the intrigue. Yes.
What do you do to take care of yourself? I physically, I mean, exercise or what are you able to do?
I take my life in my hands and I ride a bicycle in Rome. And that's really, it almost seems like a contradiction to say that, Tony, because Rome is not the most friendly driving city in the world. But I've never felt, people seem to kind of get used to, they're used to these motorcycles riding in and out. So I kind of blend in, and I'm attentive to what's around. But I do try to do that. And occasionally there's a gem, the Catholic family that knows the friars. The gem was blessed 27 years ago by a friar from the Curia. So they let me, when I can, they let me use the gem for free, and I go down there occasionally, but I don't get to do that too often. I walk when I can, and then I try to watch what I eat. I'm convinced that, that our relationship with food says something about our relationship with God and our relationship with each other. So just as we are respectful to other people, respectful to God, I think we need to find a way to be respectful with food, so that we understand as we eat, we remember those who cannot have enough to eat this day, always. They are at the table with us, our brothers and sisters.
And does that translate to any particular diet?
Yes, a number of years ago, when this is going to age me a little bit, in the 70s when I was at university, there was a world grain crisis, and there was a call to reduce or eliminate the eating of meat. The hope was that that would translate into a economics of distribution that would favor the poor, the brothers and sisters who don't have enough to eat. And so I decided then that I really could live without meat, because it takes 6 pounds of corn to get one pound of meat. So I said, I can live without this if it means other people can eat. And so I'm not a vegetarian. I just don't eat meat, so I can remember always to have other people at the table with me.
Obviously, your life changed dramatically when you were elected. What's the most dramatic change for you, other than just that you have to travel a lot?
The traveling is not so dramatic, because as a child, our family traveled quite a bit. We traveled on vacations other times. So I think there's a little bit of that. There's a little spirit of wanderlust in me to have a new opportunity to learn new things, to meet new people. I think when I worked to the Bishops' Conference for 6 years, and there as a policy advisor, I traveled about 45% of my time. When I went to Franciscans International, I traveled about 55% of my time. And when I went to Catholic Relief Services as a policy advisor, I traveled about 65% of my time. So I think already the traveling is in and of itself is not so much of a. I think the greatest challenge is to arrive someplace and not be so tired, either from the trip or from previous engagements, to not be able to listen and to enter into the context of what's going on. I think this is a great challenge. And I think the other thing is, another challenge of the travels are that I have to listen to people speak in at least 3 or 4 languages. So I speak some Spanish now, but not as good as I would like, but I understand about 95%. I use the Italian when I travel, I use French when I travel, I listen to Portuguese. I think that's another thing that takes a lot of energy, is trying to listen to people, allow them to speak in their language and not oblige them to speak in mine. And I think this is very important as well, because the story is very different if they can tell it from their own experience, from their own hearts, the language in which they speak to God, if they can say it in that language. Obviously, there are times when we need translators to be able to help, but the hope and the attempt is. So these are just challenges that come with the job, I think. I think the other challenge is to demonstrate in my own life what I would expect brothers in the order to live. And there I have to admit my own limitations and failures, and depend on the prayers of the brothers and the poor Clares and other people who are praying for me, because none of us deserve any of these jobs we have. We are only just servants, that's all, nothing more. And that's what we're called to be.
Along that line, was it difficult for you obviously something changed when you were elected, and I'm guessing that before there were not people standing up and applauding when you entered rooms. How did you sort of adjust to a difference in possible perception of who you were because of your title?
I think I admit that people in different cultures honor and reverence people differently. So one of the greatest things I have to do, and this is all part of just, I think there's a humility, as Pope Francis which demonstrate to us, there's a humility that comes with responsibility. And so we have to allow people to express in their language and their ways the way they want to honor or receive. And in part, I think what I see behind that is a real desire for people. They're not applauding me as person. They're saying that we hope you will bring us a message. We're hoping that you will be a blessing to us. And I think if I understand it in that language, then it's not about me. It's about the message that people are longing to hear. Mm-hmm. And then I start to pray, and then I get worried, because what message can I offer them? It's kind of, I think Pope Francis would feel the same way in listening to him, meeting with him several times now. I don't think it would be much different even in his mind, but each of us deal with this differently. But and then I also remind people that the two words that describe even the office of Minister General or any office in the order is frate minore. We are minor brothers, no matter what, and we are brothers. That is what defines us, not the office.
What would you personally like to be able to do better, and what maybe gifts or abilities do you have that you think help you in this position?
I wish I could speak Italian a little better. I wish I could speak Spanish adequately, because then I could respond even more effectively to what maybe some of the questions, and also enter into the dialogue. I'm saying that in one sense. I think I'm okay in the Italian now, but the Spanish I wish I could, because we have a lot of brothers in the order who speak Spanish, and so to try to enter into their lived reality. So I wish that, and I had a huge time to study Italian, 4 weeks. So that's what you get. You go to Rome, and they send you away for 1 month, and you come back, and you're in meetings in Italian, and that's all. So maybe that's one thing I hope for any future Minister General and definitors of the order, that they will initially take some extra time to get some necessary tools to be able to work together. I would also hope the next administration would rely on some other tools, on just community building tools, to begin to develop a common vision together. You can pick this up as you go along, and we work very well together. But there might be some tools at the very beginning that could be helpful, I think. And I think the other thing is, I think we need to have some type of process of evaluation. I think the Minister General, the General Administration, needs to be evaluated on a regular basis, not to criticize. It's to learn. So we become really a learning environment where it's not just about other friars, other Franciscans educating themselves, updating themselves. All of us must do this, because that's the way we can continue, I think, to keep the edge, if you will, and to be able to listen more attentively. And it's not personal. This is the most important thing. It's really not. It's about the mission. We can keep the mission at the center, and I think that's always a challenge, to make sure the mission is at the center of our lives. Jesus Christ, the gospel life we're called to, and the tremendous world that is longing for a message of goodness, of hope, of blessedness. Speaking of icebreakers.
Ellen works. Speaking of the next administration, are there things that you would like to accomplish or have in place, or is there a particular legacy that you're thinking, this is what I'd like to do or leave or make happen while I'm in this position?
The only legacy that I would hope that I could leave any place I go is that I've left a legacy that people believe that I've been a brother to them. That's the only legacy. That's the greatest legacy that I can leave. Any of us, I think, as Friars Minor. I think the other thing, though, in terms of, I hope we will be able to leave the next administration sufficient information so that they can begin the 6-year term that they will have understanding what some of the key issues are, what are some of the key strengths and opportunities that are awaiting the order. That would be very helpful to them, I think. And then to make sure that all of the administrative materials, all of the duties that have been left to us that we began with 6 years ago, that we can conclude most of those so that the new administration comes in and it's a fresh start for them. Mm-hmm. Fresh in the sense that they're any of the tasks that should have been done in the 6 years, where possible, that those are complete. And then I think it allows people to come in and be able to continuity, but a continuity with much creativity, mm-hmm. to go toward a future that's going to be very different. So I think that's...
Do you have ideas, plans, thoughts, things that you might like to happen next for you in your life after this?
Yes, I would like to, this is saying this jokingly, I'd like to do a sabbatical. It'd be the first one it would be great to do. I would like it to be a working sabbatical. I think it's important to do some work to support the community, and then to be able to spend 3 or 4 months in Mexico, probably, or someplace in the South, working on Spanish, because anywhere in the world now, Spanish is important. It's one of those 3 or 4 most important languages now. I think I would also like to spend some time reading some different areas, looking at some different possibilities, and writing. But one area which I continue to engage in, I will continue, is the area of peace and reconciliation. It's something which I feel the world is desperate for, and we as Franciscans, we've been gifted a charism for this. So I would hope to be able to develop additional skills in that area. And
this is not personal, but how do we make people care about things like the Nigerian school children who are abducted, or the crisis in the Ukraine? What do we have to do to make people care?
It depends on what part of the world. I mean, it's always sociologists in Chicago years ago in the 50s and 60s, and because I had studied in Chicago, I learned of him. But he said, if you want something to be important in people's lives, you need to help them see it where they live. You need to help them experience it where they live. It needs to have a face and a name. So the most important thing is to bring a person, bring a face, make it real for people. If they see and listen to someone who comes from that environment where possible and tells their story, that seems to have a greater impact than reading things or listening to the news, if you will. I remember, of all people, there was a senator from North Carolina, and I'll leave his name unmentioned, but he could not, he was very, very opposed to any funding for people living with HIV and AIDS in the world. And so he blocked funding for a very long time, until he met a Jesuit priest who took him to a residence in Nairobi that the Jesuit priest had created called Niombani, and where he got to meet children who were HIV infected because they inherited from their mother. He could not blame them for any moral behavior, for any laxity. He saw these children. He came home and became one of the greatest advocates for funding for HIV and AIDS in the world. So it's got to be personal. People need to see the face of the human person. Then it becomes, I think that's what Franciscans, we have the privilege. We are connected with people on the ground. We can make these connections. We need to find ways of maximizing those.
And just for any young people who might be watching this or see this, how would you describe life as a Franciscan in a way that is clear and honest, but makes them understand that it's a very good life if they happen to be interested in learning more about it?
Mm-hmm. Well, the one thing that seems to be true about the younger generation is they have a great desire to serve other people. This is something which they have told me, which in different groups and stuff. So I think it's probably what we as Franciscans need to do is create more spaces where we are listening to young people. We're actually allowing them to tell us what they need instead of us telling them what they need. I think that would be step number one. Step number two then is to try to help them connect with, in the area of service, where they can take their skills and develop their skills to place them at the service of other people. And so there would be another way that we could connect with them. I think after that, it's God's grace. I think if they go, they meet, they get engaged, they will start asking questions themselves. Maybe they would say, gee, I'd like to do this a little more full time. I'd like to be involved in people's lives in this way. Yeah, I could make a lot of money. Yeah, I could pursue a good career. Maybe I should still do that. But even if whether I'm interested in becoming a Franciscan religious or priest or just pursue a life as a committed layperson, as a disciple of Jesus, there's a lens out of which I should be able to read things, and that lens should take us to the places where people would love to have someone accompany them on the road. I think that would be the greatest service we could do, because after that, God's grace. This is the amazing thing: is when I was in high school, in college, who would ever think I'd be speaking 3 or 4 languages? I would have traveled. I would have met with presidents of countries. I would have met with 3 popes. I would have. These are not, and I'm not saying this to say anything about me, but it's just saying what adventure can happen in our lives, what newness can happen if we open ourselves up to it and keep open. And I say this to any young person: just stay open. It's a construction project. It's in construction. Don't give up. Don't back away from it. Don't run away or be afraid of it. Embrace it and just go forward. And I think that's my few words I would say.
I know you have to run. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks.